Hi, everyone. It sure has been a while. I hope everyone is staying home safe. And obviously, we're not through yet with COVID-19, but we can definitely look forward to coming out of this well and at the same time with a great learning experience. So, as most of you are paying attention in the market right now, we are seeing a fairly rapid uptake for one, online investing. Platforms like WeFunder, Republic, and many others are having great quarters of seeing an enormous uptake from investors and companies raising capital online. And this is great. This has been really at the forefront of the Jobs Act to democratize capital, and their success is because of everybody's success all around the market who have been working tremendously for the last 10 years and making this thing happen. But as we grow this ecosystem, as more companies use these regulations, a form of responsibility or a new way of looking at this is required. And then as of late, I've been spending a lot of time with many of you, with some of our clients, talking about using certain regulations. And the one that I'm going to talk about today is Regulation A, or Regulation A plus, or Reg A plus, however you want to look at it. So I'm not here to talk about the proponents of how much you can raise, who qualifies, or anything like that. I'm here to really talk about an area that it's really dear to me because I wrote about it 5 years ago, and where we needed to take a very different approach at looking at using this regulation to raise capital for our companies. So for all the CEOs out there, board of directors, and investors at large, this is really important. But it starts with the company, the responsibility from the company perspective. The responsibility that you as CEOs and founders of your company and board of directors take on is that for the very first time, we have this ability to take our companies and allow everyday citizens in our countries to invest. It's empowering, it's phenomenal, but it comes with a responsibility. And that responsibility is about communications. And that's really going to be my topic today, about communications. We need to look at this in a totally different way than we are approaching it. And I need to warn everybody in advance. Regulation A is a fantastic regulation. It is one that I think that anybody, any founder, any CEO, any executive, any board, any shareholder, any investor looks at it, it has tremendous power for a company. But it is a commitment, and it's not for everyone. And that's just it. It's not for everyone. Not everyone can do this. Not everyone. You may be able to raise the capital, but not everyone is ready for this. And that's why this section is extremely important. So I'm going to talk about communication. So I'm going to share my screen with you this evening, so you could have a better snapshot of what I'm talking about. So it's about empowering the Reg A market, the Regulation A market, all through communication. So historically, there are three different types of words we often hear, and not just in Reg A, but we hear it in general in business. We hear about shareholders. So what does shareholders mean? Well, they're the people that give you money to do what you want to do, so you go out and get customers. And obviously, as companies, we get customers, we find brand ambassadors. So it's no secret about these particular, they're well-defined roles, they're well-defined individuals. Sometimes we take care of them each differently. But with Regulation A, this is the one twist that we're now seeing, how these roles are intertwined. And if you harness it properly, it can be so explosive for your company, for everyone involved. And so we need to look at, from a company perspective, how we look at them and where has been the line. So typically when you hear the word shareholder, in anybody's mind. People go, yes, I got shareholders. I report to them once a month. And, or you talk to some CEOs, yeah, I got to report to my shareholders. I got to do it monthly, quarterly. So it's this have to mentality. It almost has a negative connotation to it. You start talking about their customers, they go, oh, yes, I hired a chief revenue officer. We're doing these campaigns for advertising. So you're spending all this money to attract customers to your company, because customers mean revenues, and revenues mean more customers, and so on and so on. So you employ all these different tools. You bring in CRM tools, you bring advertising, you bring chief marketing officers, revenue officers, and onboarding, and so on. And now in the 21st century, we're discovering this whole thing of ambassadors. Okay, ambassadors, these are people that are influencers. So influencers and ambassadors sometimes are seen as the same, except for ambassadors are actually directly involved with your company. Again, their daily interactions with you, you are working with them, your chief marketing officer, your chief revenue officer, you may even have a chief ambassador for your company, that their entire role will be on a daily basis. You're cultivating them, engaging with them to get more brand awareness, to bring you more customers. Look at all the work you do for the customers and the ambassadors. And you notice I've spent a considerable amount of time and effort explaining those two. And I haven't even told you about how much money we spend as companies to get these two particular audiences, the customers and the ambassadors. So when you look at the bottom line of any company, it is where a large chunk of our capital is spent in order to attract these audiences. So for RegA to be successful, we need to look at this in a totally different way. And I'm an advocate. I have been for over 5 years, and longer than that. I even wrote a book on this 5 years ago, and it's since been republished again recently, my new book, is that you don't look at your shareholders as shareholders. Just take a moment and just don't think about them that way. Think of them in a different way. Think of them as your customers. How would you treat them in your company if they were your customers? You would go to them. You would go and ask them for advice and guidance. You would even ask them and say, Mr. Customer, could you introduce me to other people? And you would even bring in other members of your team to see if they could also become ambassadors of your brand. So isn't this phenomenal that these individuals that you are now looking as your customers and ambassadors, not only do they come in to buy your product, but they also take money from you, from themselves, and they give it to your hands in order so you can grow the company. Isn't that phenomenal? So imagine your customers, your future customers, your future brand ambassadors, giving you money to grow the business. And all you need to do is include them in the success of your company. The success and failures of RegA are right here. It's in this step. You notice RegA success, we're not using the word shareholders. We're not. If you successfully want to be successful in RegA, not only the first time, the second and third, there are companies out there who have done it 3 times in a row and more coming. It's because they look at this in a very different light. These individuals are the brand ambassadors who are growing their brand beyond anything you could ever imagine. What investor would argue with the point that you got your customers to give you money to not only invest in you, but to take on your product and then to go out and tell the whole world about it? The best formula for success. So when you know that success and you understand it comes with a heavy burden on the company to understand that you cannot treat it the same as before. So what doesn't work? I can honestly tell you what isn't working. I have clients who have this approach. They do all the heavy communicating and webinars and videos and everything during the campaign to raise their money. They successfully raised $25, $40, $50 million, very short period of time. And everybody around them can applaud themselves and voila. Now it's done. Boom. Post. You now are sitting with 5,000. How about 10,000? How about 30,000? How about 100,000? How about 300,000 shareholders? How about 1 million shareholders? All of those numbers are possible. But if you are going to approach it from sending them merely a monthly newsletter and also a news release on what the company is doing, you will fail. The same way the success came to you through the crowd, it will be the same failure you will have ongoing, because you will not have harnessed the actual value that you received from them. It wasn't just their $500, $1,000 investment or $100 investment. Is you got more than that. You got them to become you. They are an extension of your company. So for those companies who are using RegA and empower this strategy, you will fail. And you will fail not by not raising your capital. You will fail because word will get out. Investors will be the same way you got them through social media techniques and tactics, through LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, any of these online newsletters and so on. Word will get out. Yes, it was great experience at the beginning. The CEO came out and did all these presentations, and then we only heard from them once a month, and they just gave us stats. That's not what people went in. Yes, they want a return on their investment, but they want much more. Reg A was to put back the pieces back together. You wanted the ownership back. That's what the Jobs Act gave you. You wanted the democratization of capital. They gave that to you. So now you have another responsibility, which is to treat this audience very different. So when I said at the beginning, this is not for everyone, this is not for those individuals who do publicly traded companies. I am not an advocate that publicly traded companies, in particular the junior listed ones, understand how to nurture this audience. All they do know how to do is raise the stock price up, which is fine, but then report to you as a have to component, because that's what they've been trained to do. I have to do these things. The companies that are successful today in RegA are private, and they do it because they want to do it, and they want to grow and nurture their companies. What is successful in RegA is the communication for success is simple. The same application you provide during your capital raise, which is communicating, webinars, video, news releases, engagement with the audience, you then put that on steroids on the post-transaction, and you nurture it. You nurture it. It's as simple as that. You nurture it through daily, no different than when you sit down with your executive team and you go, how are we going to get new customers? Your new customers are sitting right there. For the very first time, you can go somewhere and say, I have 10,000 customers. Imagine that. You have 10,000 customers and you are sitting with, $25 million worth of capital. What a better success story than that. But it comes with the responsibility that you must communicate. And communicate not just we did this and we did that. No, communicate with engagement. The success stories in the market are because they engage. They engage because they created a culture within their business that treats each one of these individuals as one of the most important pieces of their growth. Companies like Brewdog Breweries. Brewdog Breweries is just one example of one of the most successful companies today of using Regulation A+. It has done so 3 times in a row. It has also done what nobody else had ever imagined. One would say, well, Oscar, that's an easy undertaking. It's a brewery. No, it's not when you're coming from the UK, when there is literally a brewery in every corner. But it was leadership all the way through, understanding that if the way we're going to separate themselves was not to treat these individuals as shareholders, but to engage them, to have them cultivated part of our business, to communicate with them, engage with them to help them grow our business, to branding, coming up with brand products, to engaging with launches. So no different than you bring in your customers or you go to events and you try to get all these people together to support you. Here's your biggest support group in your history of your company. The very people that put money in. And yet, if you put them aside, it will be the biggest suicide you will do as your company, as you continue to grow. So for success, these are the techniques you must apply. And you need to have a strategy. You need to create a strategy that is there to make sure that during the raise and post the transaction, you have not forgotten that. And you have the tools to be able to manage and engage. And most important, this cannot be overlooked. You need the right people who will nurture these relationships for you. You need these relationships to work. You need somebody who will understand the same way you undertook to get these individuals into your company. You need to make sure you find the right people that will cultivate those relationships and treat them for the people that they are, your brand ambassadors, your customers to your company, and engage with them, empower them to keep growing your company. And you will grow leaps and bounds like companies like Brewdog Brewery, who were simply a brewery, who now have hotels that bring beer directly to your room. And there are many, many other companies like them: Tasty Equity, Golden Seed, Cannabinoid, BioLife, Quadrant Biosciences, and so on and so on and so on. And what they all have in common is each of them have taken on this responsibility to engage in this regulation and to understand the responsibility that came with it. I'm not saying that a public company couldn't impose and change the way they look at it. Yes, they could. I believe anybody can change. I believe it is in all of us to be able to do so. But you need to understand how this regulation was put in place, why it was there, and to also empower it in a way that it's never been done before. 5 years ago, when I wrote an article where we need to look at shareholders not as shareholders, but customers and ambassadors, I was criticized by the investment community at large, saying I was naive. The comments to me were, who in their right mind would ever want 5,000 shareholders in their company? And I put it right back to them. And to this day, I've still never been able to get an answer. When you go to any investment advisor or any private equity or venture capital or any investor, the first thing they ask you, you all know this, how many customers do you have? What a better roadmap for any company to say, I have 4,000 of them, and they gave me their money, and we're not done yet. They're going to go out and they're going to talk to everyone. They're so proud of this company. They're wearing their badge of honor. They're wearing their brand with them. So this is one of the greatest things about Regulation A that many people have not understood to date. And what I'm trying to say to all of you today is that I want you to understand that this regulation is probably one of the greatest gifts we will ever have. And in order to understand what you can do with it, is you have to appreciate it, and you have to embrace it, and you have to change the way you operate your business. You've now just been given the gift to add all of your customers, or better yet, imagine all your existing customers and users that you can now give them for the very first time the ability to invest in your company. Imagine the pride and joy they're going to take in telling their friends all over the internet. Isn't that what we all hope? Isn't that why we spend money in advertising firms and brand ambassadors and influencers to give that awareness? Who better than the people that invested in your company? So I hope today you have a better understanding about what is entrusted in you as CEOs engaging with this regulation. And I hope that you look at the examples of the companies that are doing it correctly, and you see how you can do the same. Because we all have the ability to make a change in how we move forward. And in doing so, you will build a more successful private company with millions of shareholders, which for the first time you can. So I hope to see you on the other side. Thank you again. And as always, share your questions. I'm happy to answer them. And I hope this was useful for you today. Thank you.